All right, so hello, I'm Joe Jaworski. I'm running to be your next Texas Attorney General. And before I go any farther, let me just say I am asking for your vote. I'm asking for your vote in the Democratic primary and again in the general, because this journey is all about defeating Ken Paxton, who has been in office for 20 years. And he has done so much damage in the last 6 or 7 that I have to say, sir, after long last, have you no decency? That's a famous old line that brought Joe McCarthy down. And I think that we have reached that level of demagoguery here in Texas. So my general message, as I sing to the choir here, is you can't trust the Texas GOP to lead this state. And it is imperative on Democrats as the choice alternative to rally all of us and rally all moderate Republicans who will defect from their party and independents and everybody else. So that's what my mission is, to beat Ken Paxton, send him to the private sector, and then he and his conscience can grapple with prison or whatever awaits him, because he's done enough damage in Texas. He is criminally indicted. He is investigated by the state bar. He's investigated by the United States Congress and, of course, the FBI. So we'll see what he's prepared to do. But, after that long list of particulars, you'd think, well, Joe, this would be pretty easy, won't it? In the Texas GOP primary, he is their darling. I know he's got 3 office holders running against him, which in and of itself is unprecedented. I mean, not just sort of outsiders or, gadflies. I'm talking about office holders who actually sacrificed their incumbency. Say what you will about George P. Bush. He said, I'm out. Say what you will about Eva Guzman. She resigned from the Supreme Court. Say what you will about Louis Gohmert. He just decided to abandon his run for Congress, all to run against this man. Well, here's a tip, and I think y'all know this already. Paxton is going to win. The only question is, will he need a runoff? Because he's Trump's endorsed candidate. He is the MAGA candidate. He's also an incumbent, and he's done so much damage on the question of reproductive rights, so much damage on elections, masks, public education. And really, he's an incumbent. He pats himself on the back weekly on the Maria Bartiromo show, and he's going to win his primary. So it's going to be Paxton in the general. And I'm asking Democrats to make a intentional choice to choose a mature attorney who is battle tested, who has local government experience, and who has a family legacy that is right for the moment. You may know my grandfather from history. Leon Jaworski was the Watergate special prosecutor. I'm so proud to be his grandson. I knew him very well. He had land in Wimberley, Texas for 5 decades, and that's where we spent a lot of time as a family. He was our patriarch. And what I remember and what I know from his service in Watergate is no man is above the law. What an appropriate mantra to run this campaign on when you're dealing with the likes of Ken Paxton. So it's also about being the attorney general. I have listed this long list of compromise that Mr. Paxton is under. I have to ask, just as a human being, how does the man sleep at night? But clearly he's made who pays taxes like you do and who expects the best from our government. Ladies and gentlemen, you've got to ask yourself, with so much going on in his life, he doesn't need to kick the hornet's nest. So how many issues of corruption, which I lay at the GOP's feet, are left unaddressed because Ken Paxton is our attorney general? They should have impeached him long ago, but they won't do that because they need him for the redistricting litigation so they can all stay in office, even though 95% of the growth over the last decade has been Texans of color. Not one congressional seat, but Ken Paxton is there reliably defending it. They need him to defend Senate Bill 8 Part D bill. obnoxiously entitled piece of legislation that is on its face unconstitutional. But oh no, they need Ken Paxton in there to defend it so that they can show their base what they've been busy doing. They need him to defend all the law awards. Greg Abbott, Dan Patrick, and Paxton like to put their thumb down on local authorities. Well, as a former mayor of Galveston and a city councilman for 6 years before that, I'm deeply offended by that. So I'm going to give you a series of pledges and wind up my remarks because I know there's some questions. Because I want you to know what you're getting with Joe Jaworski, not just a 30-year Texas Supreme Court licensed attorney. Now, mind you, not every one of the candidates in the Democratic primary can say that. And it's really important that you have qualified candidates that are reaching for the nomination. Number two, local official who has been battle tested and served after a hurricane and run up against the racists who tried to recall him because I championed the rebuild of Galveston's public housing. It was the right thing to do with our housing and urban development monies. And I'm proud to say we got the job done. And it's important to have someone who is a mediator, who has resolved intractable conflicts for years and years. That's something that we need in government. So here are my pledges. One, I will never embarrass you before the United States Supreme Court. It's amazing you have to say that these days, but I think it's appropriate. Number two, I will unequivocally the Affordable Care Act. And so my pledge to you is, if there's any lingering litigation, absolutely, unequivocally, I will support the Affordable Care Act, period, end of story. You know, Joan, it turns out people like health insurance that covers not just what you're going to be sick with, but what you're sick with on the day you pay your first premium. I mean, that's why I need health insurance. That's why anybody needs health insurance. So here's my pledge. After I really raise my right hand and take the oath of office in January of 2023, should there be any litigation against the Affordable Care Act lingering from the now defunct Paxton administration, it will be dismissed before the lunch hour. Well, absolutely. I mean,
that's great.
You know, all we need to worry about that day is what are we eating for lunch, right? Okay, so, and here's a third one. I will, as I've done as a candidate, will be a staunch advocate for legalization of cannabis. I want to be the first witness before the Texas Senate in the legislature when we consider the bill for recreational adult use cannabis, for jobs and revenue, to give our veterans a palliative and an alternative to opioids, and to usher in long overdue social and criminal justice reform. Another pledge, in my Attorney General opinion section, I will give voice to local governments. I'll call balls and strikes like you want, but for constitutional issues, if the cities are following the law, if there's room to interpret, then let the cities, the counties, and the school districts have their say. Let Dallas be Dallas. Let Austin be Austin. Let Houston be Houston. And then the last one, and then it's off to the Q&A. Elections. Oh, they're trying to stick it to us every way they can, but our youth will save us, and our zeal in voting will save us. So here's my pledge. I will take the ashes of Ken Paxton's voter fraud unit, and I will turn them into General Joe Jaworski's voter access unit. Because you ought to be able to call the government if someone is stepping on your voting or civil rights. That's right. If you get in line at 6:45 p.m. and they close the doors before reaching you, you ought to be able to call the government. If you sign your name as you do on a ballot by mail application, and then you sign your name as you do again on the ballot itself, but some busybody says, well, I don't think this signature looks right. That's what happened to my son in 2020, his first election, threw it out. I mean, this generation doesn't write much with a pen or a pencil. It's all computers. So to hold to such exacting standards of penmanship when signing your name, to me, is unconstitutional. you ought to be able to call the government. If your 18-year-old looks at you and says, Dad, I don't know what you're talking about. When you say, well, son, did the principal offer registration twice a year to every senior attaining the age of 18 this school year? Because that's the law and it's not enforced in the state. So that is one specific pledge I'll make. Instead of filing frivolous litigation, Joan, in the Supreme Court, what I'll do as your Texas Attorney General is issue a firm and nice letter every August to every principal in the state of Texas, public, private, charter, religious. And it'll say, principal, note well, election code 13.046D as in David. Let us know the 2 dates that you're going to hold registration. And do let us know, because we will be there to celebrate with the youth. Can you imagine, as I conclude my remarks, if we can stoke the same zeal in the essential element of American citizenship, the vote, at age 18, that we do 2 years earlier when our teenagers are getting the driver's license? We would reshape Texas. We would reshape America. And that is my pledge to you. I want to be your Texas Attorney General. And I'm sorry for going over time, but God bless y'all. I'm asking for your vote.